Let's keep the energy going as we welcome our next speaker. I would like to call Mr. Raunak Agarwal from AsInt on the stage, please. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I think I'm not the first speaker after the lunch, so at least some people are awake now, right? Okay. So I am part of AsInt, and what we do is like we provide software solutions for asset performance management space. And we are an SAP partner company. We provide applications for mechanical integrity, your asset strategy development processes, and we implement those services as well in terms of data migration services, your maturity assessments. So those type of services we provide. So what brings me today here is what brings you today, right? So the today's topic I have chosen is close to my heart, and maybe some of you in the room may be also knowing about these topics, which is reliability-centered maintenance, RCM. There are a lot of three-letter acronyms going these days, right? And another one is RBI, risk-based inspection processes. So how we want to bridge these processes into one, because primarily these processes has been running into silos from ages, and what I am sharing here today is not new. A lot of these processes you are already running today as end users, and today I am here to learn from you as well what is your processes, how you are maintaining these in your ecosystem. So let's, without further ado, let's deep dive into the topic for today. Just a quick introduction about myself. I am passionate about this space, asset performance management, and I work at the intersection of engineering, data, technology, and helping the asset-intensive companies making smarter asset decisions, definitely using the next generation digital asset management tools. And definitely when I'm not working, I'm often inspired by cricket, experimenting food recipes, and definitely tracking. So this is the agenda for today. Why this matters now? Because this is a need of the hour. I will not talk much about AI and ML today. I will still focus more on the foundational topics. A lot might be interested. If I ask the question, is your data in good shape? Everyone will say no. At least in your heart you will say no, right? In the surface you will tell yes, but in the heart you will say no, my data is not in good shape. So we will set up the problem statement, how RCM and RBI approaches work, what are the key concepts and the comparative insights. What happens when these strategies don't talk to each other? The three layers of unification, like I think it was also shared in one presentation today, people, process, and technology. So how we can unify those. We will have a short case study using filter as one of the assets, critical assets, and what foundational capabilities we provide that customers do use today. And a general roadmap of unification that can be a general guidance that you can use as a key takeaway for today and start implementing in your ecosystem and in your organization. And I will have some closing remarks. So, as I can see in the screen, RCM and RBI, those are definitely disparate, I have shown here. And let's start with a little bit of a truth serum. How many of you are managing these programs in silos today? Right. So I can see definitely some people nodding their head. Yes. That means you do manage these programs in silos today. You have two teams, integrity team, reliability team. You have two budgets, and even the teams fighting to get attention on budgets. Okay, I need these certain dollars to implement this program, and I need this budget dollars for maintaining my program. But at the end, assets don't care, right? Because assets wants to be maintained reliably, and you need to be available. The assets has to be made available, right? So assets don't care, but at the end, you have to converge these strategies together. So Once you start merging these asset performance management strategy development processes, definitely you develop more smarter and sustainable asset strategies, right? So it is not a new concept, but it's a new way of thinking how these strategies can be merged together or amalgamated better. So why this matters now, or what is the problem statement, or what are the key statements you hear from your leadership or management team or from the CXOs of your company? So definitely you can hear from, let's say, the CEO of the company, like the growth of our core business is being jeopardized by supply chain and maintenance disruptions, right? This is a very common statement C-suite level always tries to bring up in the board meetings and all, like even if you see from a plant manager perspective, every day we review the yesterday's reason for missing the production targets and unplanned downtime is killing us. So these are very common statements you hear in the industries, but how we manage those statements into processes, that's the million-dollar question. So I have some researchers' value. So let's say, for example, if I talk from a plant manager persona perspective, I am spending 1.8 times more cost to repair a failed asset than if the problem has been addressed prior to the failure. So these are the problem statements we do hear from the industries. And as a software vendor, as a service provider, we do try to tackle these statements from the end users. If I just want to harp on the RCM approach, I will again iterate RCM as reliability-centered maintenance. It's nothing but it's very analytical and a structured process that is used to determine the appropriate failure management strategies, definitely for cost-effective operations because cost is a big factor, and it is definitely applicable for industry assets or your physical assets, and is in very specific operating conditions. So if I'm operating a pump in India, and if I'm operating the same make and model pump in Russia, although the make and model is same, but the operating conditions are different, right? Because Russia is still very colder and you need to manage the strategies better for assets in the operating conditions. So normally you define the assets into some kind of components because again your master data comes into play a lot. Because if you don't have your asset master data in good shape, definitely you cannot get the full benefit out of your AI ML programs or data science programs. So this is a typical way how you do an RCM approach. You try to define the assets into your components which are maintainable. You define what is the primary and the secondary functions of that asset. So if I take an example of a coupled pump and a motor together, so normally if I see the primary function of the pump, it is to definitely pump the fluid from point A to point B at certain pressure and certain temperature, right? And I do define the failure modes and the failed states of the asset. A lot of these organizations don't maintain these as standardized libraries or don't follow any standardized ISO standards such as ISO 14224, just to name a standard that came to my mind. For example, I have just noted down some few failure modes for a pump that you already know as an end user, like cavitation, bearing failure, impeller failure. These are very common to the assets. So once you have identified your failure modes and the failed state, it's very imperative to see what's the failure effect and the consequences it will have into your operations. So the effect and the consequence can be definitely some dollar values or some economic losses, or even the safety, health, and environmental risks as well. So you take a very conscious decision how to calculate the risk and the consequence of these failures in your operating environment, in your operating context. And what you get out from this RCM approach is a very structured strategies that you want to implement. And the strategies can be these days your preventive strategies, your predictive strategies, and even these days reactive also is a very valid strategy that RCM approach gives. And normally you implement these strategies in the form of your maintenance plans and inspection plans in your ERP system. So just to give a brief view of what RCM is, so if in the audience have used RCM methodology in the past, so RCM2 was the very recognized standard used in the industry. It was initially developed by Nolan and Heap in the aviation industry. So RCM was first developed in around 1975-80s in the aviation industry. And John Mowbray, who is no longer with us, he was the RCM2 pioneer, and he developed the RCM2 strategy. And then there is a global standard called SAE JA 1011-1012, which is very global standard used for the RCM strategy development. And currently we have RCM3 as a very dedicated approach used by the industry, which is very risk-based approach. So we are no longer following a very preventive strategy, but we are going towards more a risk-based approach. If this asset fails, what's the risk I'm carrying? Because definitely, ideally, you cannot make your risk zero, right? Risk will be there, but what is the risk capacity that you can have? What is the threshold you can manage the risk in your facility? So how RBI and RCM are complementary approaches, but the goal is one. So how these two approaches are complementary to each other. So I've just tried to do some comparison study between some very broad aspects. Apologies for the text-heavy slide, but I will skim through only one or two major points like the focus area and the primary objective of RCM3 versus an RBI approach. Because those two approaches are very complementary to each other these days. Please don't think that these two strategies are running in silos, because that's the benefit you can get from your these strategy development process. So if I just talk more about the primary objective, so by adopting a risk-based approach for your RCM processes, it gives you a very dedicated strategies based on your risk profile, what needs to be done based on the priority of your processes. And definitely for RBI, it focuses more on your static assets, typically. So if you have heat exchangers, pressure vessels, and tanks, those are the asset focus areas that you focus for the RBI approach. And what are the key outputs? So key outputs are definitely your risk management strategies that you come out from these studies. So it can be in the nature of proactive, predictive, prescriptive, or even the reactive strategies that you implement in your ERP systems. So I think you can think of RBI as your risk radar, or even you can say it's the Sherlock Holmes of your inspection planning and execution. And you can think of RCM maybe as your maintenance Bible. So maintenance focus is more for RCM approach, but if you talk more about inspection approach, then definitely you talk about RBI, risk-based inspection. And there are a lot of industry codes and standards that drive these. So the very major one is definitely API. So American Petroleum Institute like API 580, 581. These are the global standards that drive these strategies and how to develop these strategies better. So I think we have taken a look at what RCM approach is. Now maybe I will just try to take your attention towards more of a RBI approach. So as you can see in the photo here, I have just tried to place a heat exchanger that is definitely a prime candidate for conducting an RBI study. So if you have done some inspections on an exchanger, it contains your shell component, tube component, and maybe channel. So if I just try to take a definition of an RBI, it is a procedure in which industrial risk is resulting from an equipment or a structural degradation. So you are doing a more pinpoint analysis for your damage mechanisms such as, let's say, thinning, cracking, or even your external corrosion management. So let's say you have a lot of damage mechanisms in your facility, because every facility will have their own set of mechanisms to be analyzed. So since you know the RBI components are very different from the parent assets. So if you know the machinery structure of a heat exchanger, the shell component or the channel components have different material of construction. The fluid flowing is different. That means your corrosion will be different in different components. So definitely you have to break down the major parent component tag into sub-components. That's your prime objective to run an RBI program. And this is a general guidance we have seen a lot of companies following today. Then definitely you identify what's the applicable damage mechanism as per your industry, as per your processes. So for example, if I have to identify some damage mechanism applicable for a heat exchanger, that can be an internal thinning process, okay, that can be an external corrosion, that can be a cracking or high temperature hydrogen attack, or those kind of mechanisms are applicable. Then you define what is the type of failure mode. So let's say this exchanger is containing some corrosive fluid at a certain pressure that you don't want a loss of containment event. So if it is a pinhole leak or a large crack or a rupture, depending on the pinhole leak, what is the inventory volume that is coming out in the environment. So you calculate those based on the risk values. And definitely by the definition of risk, it is definitely multiplication of probability of failure into consequence of failure, just in a very layman terms. But you do a very specific calculations for probability of failure into consequence of failure to calculate the risk values. And you normally try to plot the risk values in the form of a risk matrix. So let's say once you plot the values on the risk matrix, it can be in the green zone, yellow zone, or a red zone. So once you get these strategies out from your RBI program, you normally create inspections, or maybe you monitor a lot of thickness values for your assets, and based on that you drive your analysis like what is the remaining useful life, or what is the next inspection date you want to schedule. I think most of you have heard of the analogy of the iceberg, right? So you see only maybe 1/4 or the 1/10, that is the tip of the iceberg. So if I just want to take the same analogy today, so on the tip of the iceberg you see only maybe KPIs and analysis and insights, but what's the beneath the water line or beneath the surface of that? So it's a lot to discover from that. So you have a lot of master data analysis, you have a lot of maintenance and inspection history in the form of failure data. You have people management, change management, because culture adoption is a big hurdle in imbibing these strategies in the organizations. It's not easy for a technician to tell like from tomorrow you have to do an RCM with me, right? You know how painful it is for talking to inspectors and the technicians in the field. So what you can do, you can try to transform to unlock the trapped value from what is beneath the surface, and what's above the surface, you can scale to capture the new value from those. So what comes under transform to unlock? So that's the trapped value. So trapped value you can get it from, let's say, your master data. So you know master data is very prime important for your analytics to run, your AI ML programs to run. So master data has to be standardized, has to be in good shape. What is the transactional data? Like you maintain a lot of transactional data for your execution of work management, right? Like inspection history, maintenance programs, notifications and work orders in your ERP system. And definitely the new value you will get from these is analytics and analysis, your KPIs and metrics, and you will get your data-driven insights as recommendations. So I was talking about the trilemma of unification, right? How aligning people, process, and technology is a big pain point, and how these processes can be unified together. So we have the thoughtware processes, always aligning your business processes first, because that's the major pain point we have seen in the industry, like the business processes are not aligned or not talking to each other. So always standardize your business processes, have the shared taxonomy and hierarchy of your assets in your organization. As I already mentioned previously, you can follow some standards such as ISO 14224 to align your taxonomy and hierarchy. That will always be a ground-up build on the top of it. Coming to technology, always have a unified platforms and software applications. Try to consolidate your IT footprint. Maybe integrate your APM and enterprise asset management applications. And always have a persona-based insights and maintain a security roles management in your organization. Coming to people, the part which I love. So the culture adoption and change management is a very big pain point in the industry. So you need to bring people from different personas such as your set of reliability engineers, integrity engineers, risk analysts into the mix of when you start developing the asset strategies. I will quickly touch base on a filter case study. I will not go into details of each and every text, but as you can see on the left-hand side, I have the asset data. So asset data normally you store in your EM application, right? So it's a filter of 10-inch, the criticality is high, the maintenance work history. So that is the data you store in your EM application. And also you need some supply chain data like what is the material spare, what is the material cost, whether it is a capital spare, whether it is a slow-moving spare. And based on that, you perform your RCM assessment and an RBI assessment based on the criticality of your asset. So I will definitely have last 1 or 2 slides as I think already running on time. What are the foundational capabilities that you need to start imbibing within your company? So as I mentioned, the business processes has to be aligned. Break down your business process into L1, L2, L3 processes. Always have your master data quality diagnostics in place, whether you have a good master data in place. Define your criticalities, like whether my criticality is defined based on the asset class. Maybe try to imbibe a program for your OPEX management, whether your maintenance spend plan is being optimized today, because you don't want to fund all your maintenance activities for next 2-3 years. So you need to make a risk-based decision. You need to have some KPIs and performance dialogues within your organization and maintain some processes for your work execution management as well. So if I want to take a peek at what's the roadmap to unification looks like. So it's a very general guidance that you can take as a baseline and maybe start imbibing within your organization. So start having some workshops, define the boundaries of your asset management program, identify your critical assets, like, okay, I want to run RCM only on my critical assets because humanly it is not possible to do an analysis on each and every asset within your organization, right? It's a very time-consuming activity. Establish the performance standard. What's the acceptable level of performance you want from that asset? Implement your PM strategies, your preventive maintenance strategies that you want to have. Determine the frequencies, determine the task of those activities. And based on that, you can conduct your more detailed RBI assessment, because RBI assessment is very focused on your certain group of assets to calculate the risk. And based on that, you always do some inspections, prioritize your inspections based on your risk mitigation measures. And as you know, as a part of your plan, do, check, act process, PDCA cycle, you always want to get a feedback loop for continuous improvement process. So establish your monitoring and feedback mechanisms. So one asset, one strategy, one process. This is my motto, which I at least wanted to present to you. So as you can see in the very small circle in orange, the mechanical integrity program, which is RBI, and your RCM is a small subset of your APM program. And APM is a small subset within your asset management program, which is maybe more of a universal set. So I just want to take one statement, like if RBI and RCM can get along, maybe there is still a hope for pineapple on the pizza debates, right? So a lot of debate is going on whether you need to have a pineapple on your pizza or not. So if RBI and RCM can be combined, definitely that discussion is easy on the pineapple on the pizza. So definitely try to imbibe these policies or kind of guidance that I have shared today. Definitely we will try to share these slides as well. So I just want to close with this slide, what we do. So we are into this business from last 8 years, and we are an SAP partner wherein we have combined 30 plus years of experience into mechanical integrity, business process development and application development. And we have a lot of subject matter expertise around this space as well. I have just highlighted some key applications like asset integrity, inspection planning. We have definitely configuration and templatized approach, and even the safety applications that we are trying to build. So this is just a closing slide. If you want to talk more, definitely we have set up a booth outside by the name Asen there. So any questions, we can definitely take more offline in detail. But yeah, thank you for the patience listening.
To all the presenters for addressing such interesting and thought-provoking topics.